People. Hi, Erin.
Hi, Vadim.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing all right. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Can you hear
Good.
me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, great, great, fantastic. It's so lovely to see you. Thank you so much for accepting my invitation for, oops, we, yeah. Back again? Yeah.
The audio for me seems to be coming out of the wrong place, but
Is it?
well, yeah, I don't know. I just was messing with some wires, so I may have just disconnected something, but it's all
Okay,
right.
but you can hear me now, right?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Fantastic. And I can hear you loud and clear. I hope everybody's also hear you. And thank you again. Thank you very much for joining me for this Instagram live interview. Thank you so much for accepting. It was an honor to have you on my channel. So before we start, I want to introduce to everybody and to you as well what it's all about and what it's, what it is actually. It's a series of live interviews with amazing photographers and videographers as a guest, where I ask 5 predetermined questions or the same question to each photographers, and then I choose 1 or 2, sometimes even 3 questions from audience, from you guys. I ask them before, when I post actual not a request but an announcement for interview. I ask the guys to ask you a question. I decided on the 3 most interesting questions, for 2 actually, 2 questions. If we have time, maybe 3 questions. Okay, are you okay?
Am I here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Disconnecting for some. So again, 5 questions, predetermined question, 2 questions, or even 3 questions if we have time from an audience, and that's it. I mean, this is the live interview with amazing photographers and videographers. And my guest today is Erin Babnik. And before we start, I would love to properly introduce you to my audience who doesn't know you, or shame on them if they doesn't know you so much. But I want to just a short paragraph to introduction of Erin Babnik, an amazing landscape photographer, Erin Babnik. Erin's style of landscape photography brings together an unusual integration of adventurous exploration, progressive techniques, and formal education in the arts. But Erin is not only a full-time professional photographer, but also a speaker, author, and creative coach. She travels worldwide to teach photography workshops and to give talks where she explores topics with a unique blend of art, historical, philosophical, and instructional ideas. Moreover, she is an f-stop gear global icon, a member of Photo Cascadia and Canon Explorer of Light recently. Congratulations, by the way. For me personally, Erin is a true ambassador of landscape photography and one of the absolute best photographers in that genre. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome Erin Babnik. Thank you so much, Erin, for joining me again.
Well, thank you for the very kind introduction. It's very generous of you.
I do for everybody because I invite people who I really admire, who work I follow, and who inspires me. So I'm very excited to have them on my channel. So if you're okay with that, I mean, if you are ready, we can start with the questions. For the 5 questions.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. So, first question. Again, it's a predetermined question for everybody, so they are the same, but there will be 2 or 3 more from the audience. So, first question is, how do you came to photography, and why do you choose your particular style of shooting, editing, and techniques? What drove you to that? I mean, why landscape? Why not fashion or portraiture or anything else like macro or sport or something? And why particularly that edit, not, for example, black and white, long exposure, super long exposure, something like that? Why is that? And how do you came to that?
Sure. Yeah. Well, it's always been my view that you don't really necessarily choose your style and your passions in a way. They kind of choose you. You fall into it. It's organic. You evolve into it. And that was definitely the case with me. I was an art historian, and I had to take photographs in order to, it started really as illustrating my dissertation, my PhD dissertation, and in graduate school. And ultimately I wanted to develop an archive of photographs that I could use when I was teaching undergraduates. And it got to be where it was a really slippery slope because it was just really fascinating to me, very fun. Yeah. And since I was a classicist, I specialized in the art of ancient Greece. I had to spend a lot of time in Greece and southern Italy photographing not only indoors in museums, but also outdoors, temples and that sort of thing. And I was really fascinated by the way that light played off the landscape and played off the temples. And I really enjoyed being out there. And it was really frustrating to me that in a lot of these places, they won't allow you to take in a tripod, and they won't allow you to come in at sunrise and sunset. You know, there are opening hours and you have to go then. And so I found myself, rather than being really just into, this is the best picture I can get of that temple. It was more like, I really enjoyed this process, and what is the best that I could do through this process, photographing anything. And so that whole experience for me informed my artwork, not only in making me want to go outside, it made me remember that I used to love backpacking, which I had done previously, but I had kind of put that aside because as an academic, you don't have a whole lot of time for that kind of thing. So yeah. I'd kind of stopped doing it. Yeah. And I just kept sort of stealing away more and more time to go out into the mountains. I was like, yeah, that was really fun. That's what I used to do. What if I took my camera out there? I bet that would be fun. So this was back before the days of social media. So I didn't have any, I was slow to come to this realization that could be really fun. I didn't really have much. But having that background, when I did get out there, I would look at a mountain and I would think, oh, that's like a big abstract sculpture in a landscape. You know, sculpture was my specialty. And so I can't unsee or unlearn or unthink all of that stuff that I was steeped in for all of those years as an art historian. And I just sort of transferred it over to what I ultimately found to be far more just sort of rewarding for me all the way around.
Yeah, and it's actually working great, actually. It's really working great for you.
Yeah.
Can I just ask a sub question? Did you start, was it how long ago was it? I mean, how long before you started to do the photography? I mean, was it like, I don't know, 5, 10 years ago, 20s? I don't know. How long ago
it was 2004 when I first really got into photography, and when I first started learning how to shoot in manual mode and that sort of thing. And for about the first 4 years, I was using increasingly more advanced point and shoot cameras, basically. I went from like the point and shoot that had manual to the bridge camera, where you couldn't take the lens off, but it looked like a DSLR. Until I finally was, on the same slope, that slippery slope that all photographers get on, which is where you realize that you really are up against gear limitations, and then you start correcting for that.
yeah, totally understand. Wow. Thank you so much. I mean, yeah, that's great. That's span you to, I mean, your work span you to that completely different genre, and then it's become your full life and profession. That's amazing. Thank you for answering that question. So that was the first question. Second one could be a little bit technical, I mean, but still I want to answer that. So what is your current favorite equipment which you can't live without?
That's a tough one. I really had to think about that when you first sent that question to me, because there really isn't anything that I don't think I could live without. I've always been one to kind of just be curious and try things, and whatever I've got with me, what can I make that do? But then when I have an idea, it certainly does help if you have the right gear for that. So when I'm really into, for a long time, I was really into, really in-your-face foregrounds, low-to-the-ground stuff. And so when I finally got the 11 to 24, that was my must-have lens. I still really like that lens, and I still
7 to
love shooting
24
that
is
way.
amazing. It's amazing, amazing, amazing lens. Yeah, well, I mean, you can say if it's a difficult question, you can answer, for example, a line like Cardi answered. Yeah, my headphones is the equipment which I can't live without. So it could be something like a backpack or something. I mean, equipment
Yeah.
in the terminology of anything. But yeah, 11-24 is amazing, amazing lens.
Yeah. And another story that I like to tell is, as much as I love having, the best that I can for what I do. And, for me, up until the R5 came out, it was the 5D Mark IV. It was just such a tough little camera that I could take anywhere, and it could take anything I could put it through. The thing has been encased in ice, blasted by sand, but, one time I had that camera all set up low to the ground on some like really dialed in composition, just kind of waiting for the light to do something that I wanted it to do. And I was teaching a workshop at the time, so I wasn't really shooting much anyway. So I just kind of set that up, and I went walking with my little Canon M50, which is a little mirrorless APS-C camera. And while I was helping someone and they were kind of pointed in one direction, I looked back behind me and was like, oh, wow. And there was something really amazing going on with the atmosphere in the exact opposite direction. And that was what I had with me, was this little one. And so I took one of my favorite shots, with that camera. So, the old saying, the best camera is one you have with you, right? So
yeah, exactly. Soon it's going to be our phones or something like that. I mean, yeah, anything which you have in your hands is the best equipment you have at the moment. Yeah, exactly. It's fantastic. Yeah, thank you for answering that question as well. So my third question is, if not photography, then what? I mean, you probably already partially answered that question when you're starting to explore how you get to photography, but maybe something besides those two. I mean, can you ever thought about being astronaut or something? I don't know. I don't know. A truck driver.
Well, related to where I came, I've always said that the reason that I transitioned so well into landscape photography from academe, which seems like it should be totally different, it's that it's not, and it's made up of all of these little interests, and any one of which really could have been probably a career for me. So as an archaeologist, because I was a classicist, I was a de facto archaeologist. I'm actually a dirt archaeologist. For 4 seasons I excavated in Israel. And that meant getting up really, really early, sometimes like 3 a.m., getting really, really dirty, going to exotic places, doing a lot of writing, doing a lot of reading, doing a lot of lecturing. All stuff I do as a landscape photographer, right?
Yeah, exactly. So there is no other profession than photography. But I mean, imagine just for a second, world without photography. Would it be architecture? Oh, sorry, archaeology. Sorry, archaeology. Sorry for my English.
Sorry, what was the question?
I mean, imagine the world, for a second, imagine the world without photography whatsoever. Anything, related to photography, there is non-existent in our world, unfortunately. Would it be archaeology then?
Probably, or any of those things like writing. I love writing. So if I couldn't do photography, it'd be something to do with the arts and something to do with personal expression and something to do with history, because to me, landscape photography is an exercise in appreciating history. I am absolutely mesmerized by the age of a mountain, by how long a tree has been there, all that it's seen. If it could tell stories of all the things that have happened around it. I think of these things while I'm out there. To me, landscape photography, as a creative pursuit, is the act of telling stories, and so is history. So any of these things would suit me well, as a career. Absolutely. But it just so happens that I get to put it all together in landscape photography. I can have it all,
Yeah, exactly. That's fantastic. And it's actually very interesting idea you said. It's that the landscape photography and photography I think in general, it's like a history. It's like a moment in history. It's a beautiful thing. Yeah, and especially
Yeah.
landscape photography. Yeah, it's yeah. But anyway, thank you so much for the answering for third question. And my fourth question is, what is your main source of inspiration? It could be who or what, a person or art or cinemas or something. I mean, what, what makes you, what inspires you, do photography? What inspires you to do photography? I mean, generally to shoot photography, to
Um,
shoot landscapes.
yeah, it's definitely, the arts, all of the arts, especially sculpture for some reason. Like I said, I see sculpture everywhere. Every tree, every mountain is sculpture to me. um,
That's
but
lucky.
but also, what really, if I sort of, I may be changing your question a little bit, but if I'm seeking inspiration, aside from maybe going to a museum when they used to be open, or viewing artwork however I can, what I really like to do is read. So I read a lot, and anything that kind of, I like to read mostly about history or about philosophy, also about aesthetic, philosophical things that have to do with aesthetics and art, and big ideas. I like big ideas, and they get my mind going, and they make me dream. And I get ideas, and I get so fired up that I put down whatever it is that I'm that I'm reading. And usually I want to either like go plan a trip or go process a photo or something like that. So yeah, I know that's a weird answer, but
No,
I
no, no.
get very
It's
inspired by
fantastic.
big ideas wherever I can find them, by seeing them or by reading them.
Wow, this is fantastic. It's a fantastic answer because usually people, not usually, but a traditional is it's a art of films or movies or other photographers as well. But this is also an interesting approach to a reading, which is make your mind going, and then you want to put anything down and go shoot or go process. It's apparently very interesting and to that question. Thank you so much for explaining that. What is the source of your inspiration? Very interesting to know, and everybody's source of inspiration is kind of different. Yeah, we're going to my final fifth question. I asked Erin to share with me and with you guys three of her most personal favorite photos of all time. Well, I hope for now, and briefly explain what are they and why are they so so favorite. Why are they so best and favorite. And unfortunately, only me can share them. so I'm going to share them, guys, those photos with you guys. Let's start with this one. I mean, they are short and small, but you can go and visit Erin portfolio and see them big and huge. But for now, I think this will do. I hope you recognize it.
Yeah, so that's one of the hardest questions that I ever get, is to choose favorite photographs, because they change almost daily. But these
Oh my
three
God,
came to
really?
mind for me because I'm currently making some prints for myself to put on my own wall, which I have never done before. I kind of famously travel like way too much, and so now that I'm not traveling as much, I'm doing things like this. But I
Unfortunately.
never took time to put my own art on my own walls. So, but these are all ones that I'm going to hang. So this one, grand opening, it continues to charm me for the same reasons that ones that stick with me do, and that's because of the story in there. I just really love that dialogue that seems to be going on between the one tree that's sort of curling over and leaning into the scene as the mountain seems to arc back towards it. It's almost like if you could just know what they're saying to each other, you can just imagine. It could be pretty poignant. So I
Yeah,
love that moment. But of course, the fantastic light, coming in there as the snowstorm clears and the light gets in there. That's also just an incredibly special moment. So for all the time that I've spent shooting atmosphere, which is a lot, I have so many photographs that I just don't get around to processing. But so the ones that I finally do are usually extra special. And this one was just mesmerizing, just to see that clearing, and in this place that I usually have all to myself in the Dolomites. It's not a place that most people go or even know where it is. I had brought my friend Sean Bagshaw there that day, and it was just the two of us shooting before our workshop started, I think the next day or the day after that. And so I have those stories on all those levels, the nature story, my personal story, and then the metaphorical story that seems to be going on in there that all just kind of hum for me. So, and I just love the subtlety of it too. Not everything needs to be, glaring red in your face, eye candy,
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, it's absolutely amazing images. And it's great that you said it's in Italy, it's in Dolomite. It's amazing. I don't even recognize the structure. I thought this for a second it was in US or maybe Canada, but now, wow. That's amazing. It's amazing photo.
Thank you.
Thank you. So the second one, I think everybody will recognize this. This photo, at least for me. I see it a million times, and it's I think one of my favorite photos of yours, if I may say that. But yeah, could you tell me first, us? Could you tell us first where it was taken? And
yeah, that's Death Valley National Park.
okay, I thought so.
And this one too, again, it's the stories. To me, this one, I love how, as a woman, I can definitely relate to the idea of some sort of delicate, fragile, relatively fragile, but delicate, beautiful thing, toughing it out in the wilderness where it looks like it has no business surviving.
Yeah, exactly.
like those flowers, the fact that they can live in this incredibly harsh environment is so awesome. They're like badass little flowers, and I just love that. Also, again, very, very rare conditions to have a super bloom of those flowers like that. And this is a great example of when you start to do something and you start to get known for it, and you start to want to sort of work against it. This photo, because it was one of those that was in the vein of most of the work that I had been producing for a while, for I think it was 2 years, I did not process this photo. It sat on my hard drives, and I didn't want to touch it. So I'm like, it's too Erin. It's too much me, and I just could not learn to love it. And then finally one day I'm like, what's wrong with that? What is the self-hate going on here?
It came out amazing. I know, I can't remember where I read, but I know about your unique process of editing, like you putting the stuff aside for so long. I couldn't barely, I couldn't do that for myself, for example. Many of us probably couldn't do that for so many, I'm itching to get to editing or something like that. But I think we all should, have a little time and put our images aside, and then came up with such an amazing edit of something like this. And I see some comments here. A guy said, "There's something so feminine about your landscape, and love that quality." I think that's also. I'm reading. Sorry, if you can't see, Erin, I'm reading the comment. That's come in the comment section, and I think this is also describing that picture and the next as well. This is so feminine and in a unique way.
If I could take a guess at why, I hear that not infrequently, and I guess it's a more restrained approach. I guess what I have, I don't go for the the really super dark, super emphatic, I could, that's a processing, those are processing decisions, instead, I prefer a softer, more glowy, dreamy aesthetic. Seems to be what comes out of me.
And it's actually work. That's your thing, and it's highly recognizable as a Erin Babnik style or Erin Babnik photograph. I can see yours photograph in the feed. There's not many, unfortunately, in Instagram, but I can see them and recognize instantaneously. So thank you so much for the second. Sorry for explaining about the second image. Sorry, and the third one. Before answering that, I thought for the second, I thought it could be anything. Like drone photography, a macro photography, a landscape photography, and it was like it's so unique. I think it's something like to do with the salt. Is that correct?
Yeah. So yet again, crazy unique conditions. This is an area where you usually have salt, but not, these salt tubes were really tall, and fat, and there was probably a full acre of them. Wow. It was incredible. So what it was basically a big basin full of salt that had filled with water. It had just the right conditions to fill with the water and then really quickly dry.
Wow.
And so while it was drying and the water was bubbling up, the salt just hardened around where those tubes of bubbles were coming up and created these tubes. And then I got down in there with my 11 to 24, this is shot at 11 millimeters, to force some distortion out of the edges to make it look like it was really radiating outwards. So that's a choice that I made. But if you looked at, first I tried just doing like more of a straight shot, like 100 millimeters, and it was interesting, but it wasn't quite there. It wasn't until I got down there with that 11 millimeter, everything went, I was like, oh yeah, that's.
Yeah, and it's amazing. I mean, yeah, it can go for anything, again, as I said, photography, micro photography, texturing. I mean, it's an amazing show. Where was taken?
This is also in Death Valley.
Death Valley, yeah. One place I should go.
Yeah, it's full of cool stuff, and what I love about the desert is that it's always changing. I mean, from one day to the next, an area can change radically.
I thought, for me, person who lives in Moscow and the nearest desert is like 6 hours flying. I thought desert is something which never changes. I mean, it's a sand. It's a sand, or it's a flat. I mean, it's unique to see that and listen that the desert is something which is changing every day or every hour or something. I mean, I never thought about that. For me, forest is changing or lakes is changing, but desert is something which is stay the same. But it's very interesting again because probably I never been to places like this or desert
which
I can see for many hours and many seasons and many changes. But anyway, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Yeah, so thanks so much for answering those 5 questions. So we have 2 more questions from our audience, if I may ask. So let me just switch this and bring me back. So first questions came from a woman called, or girl, I don't know, Astrid Berg. Is it difficult to be a female photographer?
I think that it probably is more difficult than I make it look. I've always said that I'm probably the exception that proves the rule in a lot of regards with landscape photography, because I got into it and kind of early on and in a weird way, and I have a background where I had brothers growing up, so I just adhered well to the only mentors who I was ever able to find, who were all guys, and I, fraternized well with them or whatever. It wasn't an issue for me. Whereas I think for a lot of women, that's the hard part, is like, how do you learn?
Yeah.
And, and so for a lot of women, it may be an issue, that you just don't, there for a long time, there weren't very many women who are in landscape photography. I think that's changing now. I really do. But still, it's a matter of, being able to get the time away from home, being able to travel with whomever you want and to go wherever you want. And for a woman, that may not be entirely her decision. She may have, responsibilities at home, or she may have relatives who worry about her. She may have a husband who's protective, overprotective, and I'm sure some of those realities exist for men, but I think they more so fall on women. So yeah. I suspect that it's actually quite difficult for a lot of women to get traction. I've been very fortunate. I enjoy a very successful career, and things have worked out extremely well for me. And I think that that's just because I happen to have some coincidentally just happened to have some traits and some situations that just worked well for me. Whereas, like I said, not everyone would. And the things that most people think are, I do want to add this part, like one of the things that people often think is difficult for women is like, oh, well, but it's like dangerous for you, right? You can't go out into the wilderness necessarily because like it's a dangerous place. And I never have gotten that mentality, because that part of it actually I don't think applies to women. We're not out there wrestling polar bears. And there's really nothing that a woman can't do in the field. We can backpack, we can hike places, we can carry enough gear to take photographs. There's really no benefit to being a guy in the wilderness. There really isn't. That is totally in people's heads.
So that's a really, really wise answer for all the female photography. Don't be afraid. There's nothing there that which can you can't do. The gear is getting lighter, so you shouldn't carry it so much. And I saw so many photographers, women photographers, and I already interviewed, for example, Isabella Tacchini, excuse me, and they are amazing. They do amazing stuff, like you, Erin, and there's I don't think there is a difficulties to be a female photographer, and in that respect anymore, and at least in 2020. At least in 2010.
Yeah, and I mean, all the time I get people on my workshops they're mostly guys who don't go out into the wilderness very much, and they enjoy learning from someone and having companionship. It goes both ways. There's absolutely no gender difference there at all.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, go girls, get do a photography, landscape photography especially. There should be more a female landscape photographer with their approach and their unique style, and bring some unique styles to that genre, or to already many female photographers out there. Thank you so much. So it's so the last question from your audience came from Dale. What percentage of time do you come away from a trip with image worth editing?
Wait, say that again. What percentage?
What percentage of time do you came away from a trip with images worth editing? I mean, how?
I think like your keeper rate. That's a good question. Yeah. I would say that it really depends. If I go out with an idea, I usually will come back with something. But what I spend a lot of time doing, and I think a lot of people know this about me, is I have an exploration habit. And this can be a bad habit sometimes, because I'll go out and I'm like the curious cat that wants to know what's in the box, and I keep going and going. Oh, I wonder what's around that corner. And by the time I'm done, I didn't take any pictures. And, but once I have an idea, What's,
Do you have any
sorry?
trip where you have no pictures at all? You came back and there's like
All the
the
time.
card is empty
Yeah, all the time. Sometimes I don't even take the
all the
camera out of
time.
the bag.
Oh,
All the time.
wow.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh.
but you know,
Any
that's
regret?
that's just like when you're out. I'm out on the, well, I used to be before the pandemic, like 300 days a year. I'm on the road, either speaking or whatever. But a lot of that is shooting and workshops, and so I'm out a lot. So I don't feel the need every time I go out to have some shots in the bag to bring home. You know, and what I'd rather do is just make a good use of my time, and sometimes that's scouting. You know, exploring,
Oh,
you know,
I see.
and to getting ideas and thinking through issues, and maybe just checking some compositions and then deciding, yeah, now is not the time, but I know what I'm going to do here next week or next
Yeah.
season or whatever,
Next
you
time.
know?
Exactly. Wow, that's a great. Any regrets when you, for example, want to take a picture, but you end up with nothing uh, photographically wise or photographically, speaking? Any regrets, or you say no, no, no? All the adventure, all the fun. I don't even care that I took photos or I didn't take the photos.
Yeah, no, I don't have regrets at all. If I go out, I mean, my goal is not to come back with a photo necessarily that day. I have, you wouldn't even believe the archive of photos that I have not processed yet, going back years. I mean, it's ridiculous. So one of these days when I'm not doing a million other things, I'm going to sit down and plow through that stuff. But the times that I have regretted, and it's been a while, fortunately, but every now and then, especially early on when you're starting out, there are times when you screw up and you missed
Mm.
something sweet and you didn't get
Yeah,
it. That hurts.
yeah,
Or
that's true.
there have been some times when, I was out teaching, but that was a decision I made. So I can't say I really regretted it, but I knew that I wasn't going to be able to shoot myself because I had responsibilities and something amazing happens. And it's just like, ooh, really wish I could have shot that.
Yeah,
But so it
I
goes.
totally understand. It should be a club for photographers who miss the opportunities, who miss the light, who miss something. I mean, even now,
A support
sitting
group.
now, I see the cloud. I see the I see the clouds is coming, and since I'm a more like a cityscape photographer, I was oh my god, but nothing regret, absolutely no regret because I'm talking with you, and
Right.
so it's absolute pleasure to talk to you. That was the last question, and thank you so much for joining me on this 5 question with Instagram series of live interviews. And I want to, I already do a tradition. I want to invite everybody's my guest. I mean, my guest, and maybe somebody's from audience as well, to visit my country, to visit Russia, to visit amazing landscapes, locations like Lake Baikal, Kamchatka, or anything like any other areas where it's not as much as Western photographers been as it should be. And it's amazing. It's a long and amazing country, and I just welcome you as well. And if you ever traveling to Russia, just give me a shout out. I can help in any way possible. And again, it's an amazing country as well. It should be explored
I
by many
absolutely believe you,
talented.
and I would love to go to Russia. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, maybe when
I'm
it's
going
all
someday for
over.
sure.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. When it's all over and we're starting traveling again. Yeah, please do enjoy visiting Russia and see other amazing landscape. There's tons of. I'm just saying those two, but again, there's just tons and tons of location, and should be explored by any landscape photographers. Anyway,
Yeah.
anywhere. Yeah. Again, thank you so
No,
much,
no, I've
Erin.
just,
Thank
from
you
what
so
little
much.
I've seen, it's clearly awesome. You are most welcome.
Yeah,
And thank you very much for the invite. It's been fun.
yeah.
Absolutely
I
my
hope it
pleasure
was
to
fun.
be here.
Yeah, and thank you so much again. And guys, thank you so much for being in our live. And just wait for our next announcement for next amazing photographers or videographers. And I see you soon. Thank you so much, Erin. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.